Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back with our next panel discussion on esports enabling technologies, devices, and accessories. Let me first introduce you to our moderator, Mr. Abhishek Issar. He's the industry analyst, media, entertainment, and gaming. For the panelists, we have Mr. Rajan Navani, Vice Chairman and Managing Director, JetSynthesys. We have Mr. Anurag Khurana, Esports Consultant, Paytm First Games. Mr. Abhinandan Balasubramanian, co-founder X1 Racing and board member Good One Game. We'll also have Mr. Nimish Raut, India lead from Fnatic. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel will address selected few questions at the end of the session. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Shivani. Many congratulations to the Internet and Mobile Association of India for stitching together a wonderful show once again. Always a pleasure to be part of GATO. Yet again, we are in the august company of some very interesting panelists. Introductions have already been laid out. We have a very interesting session coming up. So as we all understand, the gaming industry by itself is segregated into various subsets. Esports plays a pivotal role there. Within esports, as I mentioned, this particular segment is not just focusing at the larger bit of the industry altogether. We sort of mobilize or steer our conversation from the macro to the micro, and then sort of look at various other subsets to it. We are looking at how esports can play an important role as an enabler to the larger ecosystem, in the software and the hardware development side. So let me quickly sort of invite our respective panelists to contextualize their own respective initiatives, their journey so far, and how they sort of look at this particular topic with respect to your respective companies. Maybe Rajan, if I could invite you to start.
Thanks, Abhishek. Very good afternoon to everyone. I think esports is a very integral part of gaming in every aspect, and I think we're seeing that getting highlighted a lot more today than ever before. So JetSynthesys really started out, in a manner in 2014, where we wanted to play a role in the entire gaming ecosystem, actually a very holistic play. And so we started out, looking at the funnel that would, get the casual gamer in first, leverage that to build a mid-core base to a core gamer and a professional gamer. So very early on in the journey, we realized that if we had to succeed in a country like India, which has a large catch-up to do at the global stage when it comes to gaming, we needed to actually invest into this entire ecosystem. So right from building a mobile studio that would build casual mobile games and mid-core games, to bringing in IPs and celebrities. We work with Sachin Tendulkar, we have a big IP with WWE, we work with Salman Khan, many others on the celebrity side to build games in the areas where sport, cricket and other aspects. And then to actually also co-founded Nordwind Gaming, which is a leading esports company in India today, and really looked at that entire funnel from the casual to the professional gamer. And what we see today is an expression of all of that. We also power the Steam and Valve platform for India on the payment side, and actually looked at the entire gamut when it came to building relationships at a global stage. So we have gaming operations and offices in 7 countries now around the world, and are working with large studios around the world to see how we can shape, actually leverage the Indian play, very strongly to build a global company in this sector. So very interesting times. I think COVID and lockdown has accelerated the pace of growth significantly for us as an industry, and we're excited about the future.
Thank you so much, Rajan. And I don't think I would have done justice to that introduction. Hence, I sort of pitched you in directly. Thanks for that. We also understand that you wear a couple of policy hats, and those are very strategic initiatives. Policy will play a pivotal role as part of our conversation, because somewhere we'd like to sort of come down to defining esports per se. As far as India is concerned, I think there's an important conversation there. Anurag, invite you next. If you could quickly lend in your introductions, your engagement with Paytm as as your current profile, or let's say one of the hats that you wear. Over.
I'll start with how I got into gaming. That was back in '99. We were the third company in India to get into gaming, apart from India Games and Dhruva. So I am called the old man of the gaming industry right now within my peers. So then our company was acquired in 2001 by Reliance, and I became part of Reliance Group. Been there for 7 years. Then, unfortunately, I was out of the industry for a decade. I entered the industry back again in 2018 when I joined Riot. After that, I was head of esports at Geo, and right now I'm consulting Paytm on esports, to be more precise. So that is my small journey.
Super. Thank you so much. It's definitely played a very pivotal role as far as shaping the industry is concerned. Abhinandan, we're looking at technology, devices, and accessories, and how esports will play a pivotal role in enabling all these sectors. If we were to put it under the economic prism of the country, your journey so far, of course, you brought the best of sports and the virtual world come together between the two ventures that you helmed. Over to you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Quickly, I'm co-founder of X1 Racing. X1 Racing is a motorsports business. We run the India's only motorsports league, and this is both physical motorsports as well as simulator racing. And very recently, we co-founded an esports company called Good Game One. Now, when we talk about esports, of course, we are, speaking about pure play gaming only, no casual games, no card games, etc. Just competitive games, titles across PC, mobile, and console. Our focus area obviously is to sort of develop grassroots, and we're doing that via gaming on the cloud infrastructure, right? So what I mean by that is democratizing the access to esports across various sort of sectors, right from school up to college, even as top as corporates, being able to play on cloud servers with any kind of device that they have, be it a mobile PC or tablet. And we've launched this very recently. Our products are pretty much in stealth mode at this point. We've got early beta users. But my larger interest into esports came in last year when we did the simulator racing for X1. We built our own custom simulators in India. They cost 1/10 of the cost of what you get simulators globally. We built them here in Bangalore. It was fabulous for us to understand how touch and feel, even in a very digital ecosystem like esports, is something that changes user experience and fan journey, right? And that is one of the key aspects of and reasons why we took double dipped into esports and have now launched Good Game One as well. So that's us. That's me.
Well, thanks a lot. That's a large description coming in a very sort of condensed form.
Yes.
You touched upon some very interesting topics there. We have the software element coming in. I think that's an important part that we like to address in this conversation. And of course, defining the audience of esports as far as India is concerned, because as we understand, the West is also, traditionally it's focused on at the pro level, but I believe the scale is really coming in on the amateur side. So we'll come to those elements later. Nimish, welcome. I believe you just come in at the right time. We're running through a quick contextualization, of our respective initiatives and businesses thus far with respect to the topic that we are speaking on. So, if you may sort of quickly, for the benefit of all the viewers, introduce yourself and also run us through how you look at this particular topic, how esports will play in tech enablement.
Guys, my name's Fnatic Nemo. I look after Fnatic India business. Been fortunate enough to work with I think most of the people on the call right now, and hopefully. To answer your question, I think the role that esports plays, I think esports is pretty much I guess the center point or the heart in terms of pushing the limits of what technology can do in the world of gaming, in terms of engagement, in terms of whether it's future monetization, whether it's trying to engage with fans, whether it's trying to bring in the different aspects of broadcast. I think without esports, the idea of gaming would have just stayed as gaming, right?
Yeah.
It's because of esports that we see that people are really pushing the limits of trying to either it's building in new aspects to engagement, either it's building in new aspects to bringing in brand integrations. It all is because of esport in that sense, and I guess that is something that's going to be challenged a lot more in the future as we start getting compared to some of the larger sporting properties in the world. And it's exciting because with technology, the kind of stuff that esports can deliver, there could be a scenario where we actually deliver better broadcast than mainstream sports eventually. So that day is not that far away.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that, and I think the world is kind of looking at the India potential with that respect. But often, when it comes to the dividend of our audience, it's understood that we definitely are a relatively immature market in the sense that exposure is relatively much less compared to the West. But therein lies the opportunity. So, Rajan, if you may want to address the relevant and important steps that India can take in defining not just esports but also helping create a mature market, because that eventually will have a ripple effect on the larger ecosystem of developing other devices, technology, and so on and so forth. You're already helming an initiative in virtual reality and augmented reality. You've taken some key steps there. So, how do you see the transition of the Indian audience towards a very mature market?
Abhishek, you want me to answer that?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear. Yeah, no, so absolutely. So I think if you look at the entire aspect of esports, as Nimish rightly put it, I think the technology that is playing a key role here is something which is very, very different, and it has given an opportunity for a large amount of technologies to now get deployed. What you rightly mentioned, whether it is AR and VR, and we have actually seen that because as we've taken, say, a game like Sachin Saga, where you actually go and play as Sachin Tendulkar, in most of his 100 of his best innings. Now imagine, we created a VR experience where you go, you hold the bat, you enter the stadium, you get the immersive experience, you feel the audience that is there, and then you go and compete to be the best Sachin. Right. So, when you look at anything which is the sport, the idea is you got to have that skill at an equal platform. You can't pay to win. You need to have certain aspects that give you an edge. You need to train. You need to be able to do so many things to really succeed at a sport. And, a gaming sport is no different. Right? And I think that's the beauty about, where the future is headed, because on one side, we do have, a very well-established esport industry globally, which many of us have been a part of, and where I think the growth is absolutely phenomenal and will continue to grow. But there is this whole opportunity for a country like India, particularly, to create, e-sport games, which will actually be able to engage that entire funnel, as we were talking earlier, from an amateur to professional, and make those experiences that will enable that to happen, significantly different. And I strongly believe that right from, the technologies that you mentioned to simple things like, how do you keep yourself ergonomically right, when you are playing a game on PC. And we see that equipment, because you can get physically hurt, to any other aspect of a sport, to the entire infrastructure. I think, the network impact, the whole impact of latency, the technologies that are required to make that grow and sustain that, to the devices, I think there's a huge opportunity, and I think the most interesting is the whole accessorization of this space. So a mouse which you will use to play a first-person shooter versus a MMO style mouse are two very different kind of accessories you can use to excel. So I think, like any other sport, the opportunity for esport to leverage technologies is immense, and I think there are therefore opportunities to build services around it. As we are seeing there's a talent pool that can come in. So an entire industry which is waiting to get unlocked. And Abhishek, as you mentioned, as the president of the India Digital Gaming Society, one of our key discussions when it comes to government, and especially with CII as the backbone for the formation of the society, is that this can emerge as a very interesting large industrial sector going forward, which can employ not only hundreds of thousands of people, but maybe millions in the years to come, and also enable India to be part of a global supply chain of an industry that is growing rapidly. So I think the opportunities are immense. It is for us to kind of work together and help shape the industry in the right direction for India.
For sure. So I'm going to take a lead from your last point. I think opportunity is definitely there. I believe the sector is coming into notice as far as policymakers are concerned, and it's being looked beyond the prism of entertainment. And I think, therefore, it's very opportune for us to talk about technology, devices, and accessories. Anurag, you've been part of this journey for a long time. You've seen the growth of this industry. It's definitely on an upswing right now. But we also see a fair amount of headwinds being looked upon, gaming as an industry at large, right? And it's important, I think, somewhere to draw that fine line to establish esports being an independent setup altogether. To be fair, I believe it's also important that the industry has this representation within the policy corridors as well. What are your views on that? Because I think perception will play a pivotal role in actualization of the real potential of this sector and segment.
Sure. So, as Nimish said that he has worked with most of us, so me and Nimish had long discussions from 2017 on this sector, and I really agree on that part that we need a framework and some government recognition for esports as a sector, preferably under Ministry of Sports or Youth Affairs, to regulate this, because this is also a sport more than a video game. That is my key point out there. So as all the sporting bodies in India are managed by Ministry of Sports, correct me if I'm wrong, I would recommend that Ministry of Sports also get involved here and create a body which basically manages and creates the framework for esports in India.
Rajan, I'm aware that you've held some of those conversations very strategically. Where do you see this going? Because there's actually a conundrum right now, which is should the policymakers take an initiative, and it won't happen unless, of course, the industry has made a solid representation there and in consensus. The challenge is today, the jury's out there. There are multiple iterations to whether it's fantasy, casual gaming, real money gaming, and of course esports. So I think if the consensus today is somewhat lacking clarity from industry's representation to the policymakers, in your perspective and purview, because there's a hardware element, there's a software element. If the policymakers are involved, of course, they're not just looking at the GSTs coming in, but they're also critical. They'll evaluate it from a skilling perspective. How do we grow the industry? Education will play an important role. And your views on how do we articulate this? Which international bodies do we sort of align ourselves with, and so on and so forth?
No, it's interesting you raised this, Abhishek, because I think as a country in India, we are at that inflection point when we look at gaming as a whole, right? So it's the buckets into which one can divide the entire industry. So what you rightly said, game development and is definitely one thing which is there. Then there is esport, then there is real money gaming, fantasy sport. There is also the entire devices, technology. So different buckets that come together. I think the lack of knowledge is the first hurdle we need to cross, right? And I still remember when we did the first India gaming show in 2017, and we had invited the Minister for Information Technology, to come there. And we got him to experience this entire thing where there were 70,000 people and very large global companies participating at Pragati Maidan in Delhi. And he said, I didn't even know that the gaming industry could have an opportunity like this. And at that point, he said, my first thing is whenever my children wanted to play a game, I said, no gaming, nothing at all. And today I go back very enlightened. I'm just saying a simple thing like that also triggered a lot of discussion across multiple industries. And as what Anurag rightly said, this industry is going to require participation from Paytm. And I know the initial conversation started out from the Ministry of Commerce when we said, how will India achieve a $5 trillion economy? And what are the new sectors that will contribute to the new extra $1 trillion over the next 10 years? Right, and gaming figured as one of the pieces in that. Right from there to what you rightly said, the finance ministry looking at how does the monetization happen? How do we separate a money in money out tournament from an esport? What does that really mean? And of course, this IPL has highlighted that significantly because millions around the country and around the world have actually participated and experienced many different types of products. So I think, as a country, we are at an inflection point, where I think it's important to first present what does each of these buckets do, what do they mean for us as a country, what are the areas in which we can build opportunities at a global level. The $150 billion plus industry, traditional gaming industry, which comprises PC, console, and mobile, is itself a very, very large part. And how does India participate in that, in addition to all these other things? So I think we have started the process, and I'm seeing multiple, associations, organizations building the conversation there with government. And I think it's important for us as an industry to come together to put all the facts there and then work in a manner that will enable and ensure that this industry only scales and grows over the next decade, because opportunity is massive, as we all know, the statistics when it comes to India in this space. So, I think I'm glad you raised this question.
No, of course, and I think it consolidation of perspectives of stakeholders in the industry must come together. Abhinandan, you're actually building a very interesting model whereby you bring the best of real and virtual together, somewhat like Sachin Saga has done for JetSynthesys. And, it is actually under an initiative like yours, and you mentioned Good Game One is a very interesting concept that, you come up with, to be able to utilize that data for the benefit of the end user, not just limited to a corporate in this case, but also to kind of expand and extrapolate, esports as an acceptable segment and vertical for policymakers. How do you link the two? Because I see that a business model like yours can essentially be taken up, at least on the hardware side, can be taken up at at industrial levels with respective state leadership and so on. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of beg to differ on this one. Yes, of course, it'll be great to have standardized policies, regulations, but it will obviously, they act as more roadblocks than enablers in the short term and midterm. The long term, of course, they'll help streamline the entire ecosystem and sort of set standards. But in at least over the next 3 to 5 years, how we are looking at this is going at it from a very entertainment vertical, as opposed to sort of how we are describing it here. How we sort of want to sort of build this out is a mix of software and hardware, right? We are for sure of the opinion that the touch and feel is an important aspect. The accessibility of a hardware is very important in the growth of this vertical. But also we are aware that that comes at a cost, and that accessibility also has cost. And by virtue of that, we are enabling that via software at our end. And that'll take another probably 6-12 months to roll out. But at the amateur and semi-professional levels, I think policy at this point in time is very early. We are still a very nascent market. India is kind of, if esports itself was the wild west, I think India is the wild west of that wild west. So I think we're far. It will take some time, but I think building a strong grassroots and strong sense of community in this ecosystem will help. One thing that is very clear is and very evident is the community is super sticky here. And it's very interesting to learn when you're diving deep into it. I think after cricket, I think esports probably can boast of the strongest and stickiest community. And again, any kind of comparison to cricket or IPL is going to fall on deaf ears. But it is the thing to do. You have people who buy merchandise in this community. Even the IPL, you don't buy original jerseys. You have all the piracy that goes on with it. So there is a wide open channel. I think it's about first establishing very strong fundamental grassroots. I think lots of people on the panel are working on it and have already started enabling those grassroots. And I think once that is established strongly, you power that up with various aspects of technology, both software and hardware.
I get that. Especially, on the points that Abhinandan has made, Anurag, would you like to sort of lend some sort of insights as to, what Paytm is sort of looking at? It plays a very pivotal, when it comes to the on the payment side as well, as much as they are being a common platform for multiple sort of games. The larger consumer base in the country, as we all understand, is spending a lot of time on the mobile phone. What's on the horizon as far as Paytm is concerned, and how's it that you see the esports sector growing there?
So I think we are very clear that India is a mobile first country. There's no confusion in our mind. And courtesy Geo bringing data at a very affordable cost, like I know everybody knows, but India data pricing for mobile or 4G is the cheapest in the world. That's one part. And second is Paytm itself, the parent company, enabling money transfer very easily, because before Paytm or digital wallets were there, the spending on buying the product, not from esport perspective, from gaming perspective, the purchases was expected that the kids would have debit cards and credit cards. Unfortunately, not true in India. The people who are playing the games, that TG doesn't have credit cards for sure. And debit cards they don't want to use. They don't want their parents to know that from the bank statement that you are spending so much money on gaming. So Paytm is the other company, I guess, all the credit to making the payments easy for kids, because these are micro transactions. They are 100, 150, 200 rupees kind of transaction, which a kid might do once a month. So I give all the credit to these two companies to bringing the ecosystem in place. As far as the money part is going, I'm very clear. Again, this is my personal opinion, not taking any names, but I'm very clear. For esports, the players should not be paying. We, as esports organizer, we should be paying them money like we do for every sport. I am bringing again and again that for me, esports is more closer to sports than gaming per se. Yes, we use games for esports, but that's the end of it. That's where the analogy ends for me. So I'm very clear. Esports is like any other sport. As you know, for playing cricket, the kid doesn't pay any money. He pays money for coaching and all that stuff, which is true for esports also.
Are you suggesting somewhere that therefore the need for us to establish a federation like any other sports body, and then have it aligned, and because not BCC, for instance, is not really under the aegis of the Ministry of Sports. It's an independent body. So what's the right way forward, let's say, for esports?
So I'm very clear. We need a body, and having members from multiple domains, from TO, from the brands, from the game developers, people from there. It could be a private body or a government body, but it should be recognized by government, because that will give the whole idea that gaming is bad just goes out if government is behind it. That's the way I look at it. Okay.
And then would you sort of ascribe to this view, and under this body, it should, so unlike any other sports body, should not be limited to essentially promoting talent. or should it only be limited to promoting talent and the elements of, let's say, building infrastructure, soft and hardware both should be let alone to the industry independent of the body, or should it be all under one umbrella? How do
No,
you
I
see
think, I
that?
think, I think, I think, I think anything that's technology, which is software or hardware, should be left independent. But I completely prescribe to Anurag's point. There needs to be a body that regulates and helps professionals. It's almost like a players' association, right? I mean, that is extremely important in this industry. Again, given you should also take into consideration that most players are young adults, do not understand, let's say, contracts, legality, all of these things. There needs to be a body that regulates it, helps them understand, educates them, and professionalizes the whole thing. I mean, anyone in the esports ecosystem will tell you, and it's not a negative in a negative manner, but it's unprofessional because you're 16 year old. What can you expect, right? You can't call them unprofessional, but that's the unstructured nature of this industry.
Right.
And a body like what Anurag is talking about is exactly what's required for it to sort of become more organized. And by the virtue of having that kind of recognition and a body that regulates player behavior, discipline, and all of that, you also then sort of pander to the powers to be and policymakers to then give it that required recognition, right? Let's say, for instance, sporting bodies have anti-doping policies, etc., etc. Things like that. Small steps, but you take it one step at a time. And I think something like a player's body is for sure a step in the right direction. But on the other aspects of it, the technology aspects of it, I think that should be completely left independent, because that's where the disruption comes. If you regulate that, I think then you're stopping this industry, which is sort of growing at an exponential pace right now.
We see policy intervention now coming as far as advertising on gaming platforms is also concerned. A couple of state governments have taken a very hard stand on it. Rajan, how do you see this sort of shaping up in a very sacrosanct from the policy corridors? Do you reckon that this should possibly be part of as the global conversations are on putting esports on the Olympic mission? Would that be a way forward?
No, absolutely. You just talked about things coming on advertising, and just to say that I think responsibility on the side of the game developers as well as the entire industry and community is so important. At least at a stage like this, right? And I'm so glad both Anurag and Abhinandan looking at esports exactly the same way it is meant to be viewed, right? Globally, you play it as a sport. You win a prize money, you win something. Because what is happening today, there's a fine line between creating a tournament where you pay to enter, you can pay to. There's so many different aspects, right? Money in, money out, kind of things. Which also, in a way, people would talk as a sport because there is an element of skill, there's an element of luck and chance, but there are certain fundamental principles which define what a particular subject is. Right? So if you talk of an electronic sport, it's just that the sport is electronic in nature, and that's about it, right? Otherwise, whatever is required to succeed in that sport is like any other sport. The big impact in India, and I think which will really drive this, is the viewership. Is the whole broadcast piece, which we've all been witness to the exponential growth, and therefore I see what Anurag was saying. While there are ministries like sport and culture which would definitely own this, but information and broadcasting would come in because of the type of content that's being used. As we discussed earlier, so differentiating these different models, differentiating these different ministries, where will the incentives come for this industry to grow? Those come from finance, commerce. So I think it's a holistic approach that we need to take as an industry. I think the good news is, right from the Prime Minister's talk of gaming, and India needs to go showcase a lot of its products and local culture and folk tales globally through gaming is now accepted, right? I think there is enough recognition in India today and around the world that this is an industry that is poised for high growth. We are at the epicenter of it with the penetration of mobile, youth, and costs, affordability of this sport. So I think it requires these different things to come together. It's important that we collectively think about this, rather than do it in different silos.
Point taken. I think it's a great idea that multiple ministries can take ownership. It could possibly be helmed under one. And I think all of you three gentlemen are essentially pointing in the same direction, whereby it gives enough freedom for independent players to also build on their pieces. Now, Rajan, of course, you touched upon the streaming element, which is the viewership. Abhinandan, how is it that you're leveraging the streaming base of esports in India? Because your business model is very interesting. So I'd like to understand. YouTube is, for instance, looking at gaming as a very important revenue vertical, largely coming from India alone itself. How is it that you're trying to leverage that?
So our approach is via live programming and original shows, right? It's a mix of not just the professional teams playing, amateur teams, semi-professional teams, but also original programming around it. It's almost a network channel approach to esports. I say it's sort of star sports with only esports, let's say, right? And to what Rajan said, this needs viewership, and viewership is not only going to be sort of powered by one title. Of course, over the last 2-3 years, we've seen one game title which has obviously powered the entire ecosystem, accelerated this whole discussion about esports and everything. And for various geopolitical reasons, if it is banned, you have this whole drop in viewership, right? And everyone's now picking up the pieces on top of it. But I think what we need to do is not create a system where there is a cricket within esports, which is what PUBG became, and everything else was the rest of the sports. I think many tournament organizers are democratizing that, building their local communities for each and every title across every platform. And that is, I think, the form in which viewership is going to increase. PUBG might have the 100 million viewers, and some other game might have a 2 million viewer. But those 2 million viewers for that X game, if sticky, can be monetized and sort of engaged for whoever the stakeholder is. And I think that is how we are looking at it. We are a publisher agnostic business. We work across multiple titles. And across multiple tiers. So that's how we are doing it, and sort of implementing that across cloud as well.
So Abhishek, I like to just say what Abhinandan was saying. If you ask me personally, I'm okay if PUBG becomes the cricket of esports. The reason being that Tencent has done that investment in India. Tell me, Abhinandan, how many other publishers have done that investment in the country? So I'm perfectly okay. If a company or a publisher invests that kind of money, I'm perfectly okay they're getting the viewership because they have invested in the country. So that is my only point which I wanted to add.
Yeah, and to add to Anurag's point, not every game that is made, is made to become an esport worthy game, right? Because at the end of the day, to excel at a global level, you need to get deep into any particular kind of a sport, right? So maybe ultimately esports will have multiple titles, and it's already beginning to happen globally. But there still have been, even at a world stage, there are very few games that have that take 90% of the esport professionals who are building up, right? So that, I think that trend, according to me, will continue. But to Abhinandan's point, India will have its own different ways of engaging them, and creating local communities, etc., which will drive that, and that will make it more fun. But it may not really become the esport to what Abhishek, what you were saying, go to the Olympics. I think that's we need to be cognizant of that difference.
So, with respect to in fact, all three of you are iterating interesting views. And now, Rajan, we understand you initiated a Ludo platform recently. There have been some conversations that we need to have more indigenous games that can fall under the bracket of these sports. Is there a window opportunity like that? Because that will definitely address and cater to the Indian audience. Will that help India transcend or actualize potential in esports going forward? Could there be Ludo for under esports? Just a question. Your views.
Again, as I said, if we look at it at a global stage, people will laugh if we say it, right? Because the complexity and the level to succeed and win at in a sport is a lot more complex than just that, Like we have cricket, for example, right? We acquired real cricket as well. We have Sachin Saga, a mid-core game where you actually play cricket, in different combinations, and even there, right? While we have been able to replicate the complexity of the sport to its best possible extent at a digital level, there are different aspects that can enable people to perform better. But if you saw what Anurag did with Riot and with League of Legends, that's a game where you talk of a completely different level of what a sport is. So I think that this journey is an interesting one, right? I think as I said, India has always been innovative in so many areas and sectors, and I'm sure we'll create these different plays that will excite Indian audiences, that will get them involved. And why not? If I can be the Ludo champion of the world, great. It's super, right? But what it takes to be a Ludo champion will be definitely very different from what it would take to be a Counter Strike champion, and how many people will really play that. So when we did the Issar one championship here, there were 140 Germans who came in. The entire thing was transmitted to 67 countries. There were several hundred television channels. That happened out of Mumbai, right? Because it was an Asia tournament, and it happened out of India. Would that really happen in other countries when it goes to Ludo? It might take a long time for that to happen, but can it happen in India? Yes, for sure. So I think it all depends on how it shape up, where people are excited. But keeping again to the point, which I think all three of us agree upon, you are playing to win a championship rather than making money or winning. That being the driving factor, and we have to distinguish that.
Correct. No, we don't have more, too much time left. Just a couple of minutes. We have one question, which is again regarding technology, essentially policies initiated in esports, which enable technologies. I think somewhere we've kind of touched upon that element. So, just as a final thought from all of you gentlemen, way forward, from an investment perspective, we've already had detailed conversation around policy. What are the new exciting ideas that you foresee taking shape in the immediate future? Rajan, Abhinandan, and Anurag, all three. So maybe Rajan, you could take a lead.
Sure. So I think the excitement is around 5G. I think that's a big one for India. We've always talked of the connectivity being a challenge. The latency, the method by way of which connectivity is now reaching homes at a completely different pace. 5G will unlock so many different things, whether it is cloud gaming, whether it is the advanced technologies that we talked of, VR, AR becoming strongly implementable. In that, the cross-platform play is again a big driver of the way the future will be. Like anything else you see on an OTT platform, you can leave a game somewhere, you can join it somewhere else. The broadcast capabilities that will tremendously get enhanced. Through that, the social aspects of gaming, and I think esports' biggest contribution probably is to socialize gaming at a professional level, because like cricket, right? When you have great cricketers or you have great sports persons, you have created a whole community and a social community that is doing tons of things around it, right? So I think all of these are trends that we've not even scratched the surface on, and I'm quite excited what will happen in the next few years.
Super. Abhinandan?
Yeah, I think Rajan's kind of addressed the entire ecosystem in that, right? Very specifically, what we are concentrating on and sort of focusing on is that cloud gaming element, which is gaming on the cloud, supplying and enabling technologies where it can be democratized. You can play on any platform from anywhere, and using that to sort of empower communities. So that is where we are investing in, and we are extremely gung ho about. We are strongly of the conviction that empowering grassroots communities using that is going to help sort of widen the ecosystem, bring in new audiences as well.
For sure.
And that's where our investment is in.
Super, thanks. Very briefly, we have run short of time. I'm being poked
I'll
by
just say,
the organization.
so my philosophy is different. Right here, if you see worldwide, operators who are launching 5G, they're using esports as a selling tool, not really helping esports. So that is my perspective coming from telecom background. So I would like to keep it simple. I want grassroots to grow in India, grassroots participation to grow in India for further evolution of esports. So collegiate esports, amateur level tournaments, I want to see more of that.
For sure. I think that's where the real opportunity is. I believe that's what US also realizes, looks upon its market, covering the recreational side of it. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Wonderful, listening into your views, articulations coming in.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank all our speakers who made this discussion super exciting. Another thanks to our platinum partner, AppsFlyer, and digital growth partner, InMobi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are signing off.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abhishek. Well done.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.